It finally happened. I was hacked in Dark Souls. I mean, I knew it was gonna happen, because I was playing unmodded on PC and just spent a while in Anor Londo. This was an inevitability. I'll talk more about that in a second, but allow me to open up by just stating the point of this video clearly. If you're playing Dark Souls Remastered online on PC, you either need to install the PvP Overhaul Mod, or you need to be backing up your save files regularly. If you are not doing these things, you're playing with fire, and you're asking for hackers to ruin or spoil your playthrough. I cannot stress this enough. Unless you're someone who purposefully boots the game in offline mode every time you play, literally every single Dark Souls player on PC should be doing one of these two things. So getting this public service announcement out there is the purpose of today's video. Hacking is incredibly rampant nowadays. Back in the day, there used to be a lot more knowledge about community-made anti-cheat tools like PvP Watchdog. But when the remaster came out, you could get soft banned for using mods, and so the expectation sort of went out the window about modding tools that can be taken online. However, there are now some mods that are completely safe to use online, and that's where the PvP Overhaul mod comes in. And because the mod is multifaceted in what it offers, the name itself might not be totally clear that one of its purposes is offering cheat protection. So there's something of a knowledge gap here. You'll find thread after thread on Reddit of people talking about getting hacked, and you'll find a lot of comments where people mention that that's why they play offline now. There's just something really unfortunate about that to me. Players should know their options, and feeling like you're forced into offline mode because of the presence of hackers is giving the hackers a win they don't deserve, because you can't stop them from messing with your game. So I'm going to do my best to catch everyone up on this and get the word out. In the same way that everyone recommended DS Fix for the Prepare to Die edition of Dark Souls 1, I'm hoping we can get mainstream recognition of the importance of the PvP overhaul for the remaster. At the risk of sounding too alarmist, I should clarify what I mean by unsafe. A few years ago, these games were patched to prevent a remote code execution exploit, so we shouldn't have to worry about the hackers doing any real harm to you or your computer. They're not going to brick it, and they're not going to steal sensitive data from you. However, they can still mess with your game by killing off important NPCs and bosses, which can be ruinous to the experience of the game you paid money for and put a bunch of hours into. And if you pick up illegitimate items they drop, you risk getting soft banned from online play as well. So to be crystal clear, Dark Souls 1 on PC cannot be trusted to perform as expected without mods, because hackers can do things to ruin your playthrough. Okay, with that dead horse now beaten, there's a few things I'd like to go over. I'm going to talk about the hacking that occurs, how to install the PvP Overhaul mod and what it offers, the alternative of backing up save files on your own if you really don't want the mod, and why some of the other suggestions or assumptions on how to avoid being hacked aren't very good. The modus operandi of the current suite of hackers is to simply invade players in Anor Londo, and then instantly kill whatever bosses and NPCs are present. You will not receive a notification that you've been invaded, so this can seemingly happen out of the blue. However, if you're savvy enough to watch for impending multiplayer activity by equipping a multiplayer item, it'll become unusable as it always does during multiplayer. Watching the white sign soapstone turn gray here is what informed me that I should start recording, and sure enough, I got hacked shortly after. I did spend a few hours for the last couple days hosting in Anor Londo, and the good news is that I actually got quite a lot of perfectly normal invasions that were pretty cool. I went through a couple dozen multiplayer sessions before finally getting hit with the infamous hack. So while it's not a guarantee that you'll be instantly hacked the second you go human in Anor Londo, the odds still aren't great, and you really don't want to take a chance on whether or not a hacker is on one of their hacking sprees, which is incredibly common now. Of course, having bosses and NPCs killed sucks. It doesn't softlock your game, so your game is never truly hacked into an unplayable state or anything like that, but it can certainly spoil your playthrough. I had Gwendolyn killed, which teleported me into their boss arena, and even temporarily trapped me behind the entrance since I hadn't opened it yet. I was unable to quit out or homeward back to the bonfire while the hacker was still present in my game, who also killed Solaire, the Darkmoon Nidus, the Giant Blacksmith, Siegmeyer, and even Guinevere. Though that last one won't be apparent until you get there. However, the hacker or hackers are known to sometimes target other areas. I have a feeling they focus on Anor Londo for a few reasons. There's multiple bosses and NPCs here who can be frustrating to lose, and it's far enough into the game to really piss players off. Hack someone at the start of the game, and not as many hours are lost. However, they will sometimes do that as well. If they invade you in the Undead Parish, they'll kill Andre and probably Solaire. If they invade you in the Painted World, they'll kill Priscilla, and so on. So this should not be thought of as an Anor Londo exclusive problem, as nowhere is truly safe. I also got invaded by the hacker a second time, this time with PvP Overhaul installed. It was funny watching them stand around as they were trying to look for things to kill in my game. They hadn't killed Ornstein and Smo the first time, and were probably trying to do that. They still had an invincibility hack of sorts turned on, where they couldn't have their HP reduced below 1. But nonetheless, I found some amusement in messing with them. I named my character New to Dark Souls, because I thought it'd be funny if the hacker thought they were messing with someone as usual, but the joke's on them. I was a willing participant, and I have monetization for this video turned on. While I didn't necessarily need to get hacked to make this video, nonetheless, they're helping me get the point across, and I can make some money off of them for doing it. If you want to get the jump on them, I'll include a screenshot of their Steam ID, and you can go ahead and block them. Blocking players on Steam should prevent in-game connections with them, though I honestly have no idea if there's some kind of hacky workaround for that. But this shouldn't be considered a solution, since they probably have multiple profiles. In the hacking spree that's happened over the last few months, several different accounts have been caught doing this. But it's something you can do to at least make things a little more annoying for them, perhaps. The PvP Overhaul mod is available on Nexus Mods and GitHub, and I'll link to it below. The installation instructions are pretty simple, but if you're new to this, I'll quickly walk you through it. You'll first want to locate the folder that contains the exe file for Dark Souls Remastered. For most players, the folder path probably looks something like this, unless you installed it to a different drive. Then you'll want to download the zip file of the mod from either Nexus Mods or GitHub. On Nexus Mods, you'll probably have to create an account and then choose manual download on the zip file. Then you'll want to extract the contents of the zip file into the Dark Souls Remastered folder that contains the game exe file. Sometimes extracting zip files will want to make a new subfolder instead of extracting directly into the folder you're trying to put it in, but basically, you want all of these files in the same folder as Dark Souls Remastered.exe, so copy and paste them around as needed if necessary. Everything here may look a little different than it does for you, since I have other mods at the ready, but here I'm showing what the game folder looks like for me with the mod properly installed, and I've selected all the parts that belong to the mod, so you can be sure that they all wound up in here. If the mod was installed correctly, when you launch the game, another window that looks like this should launch along with it. You don't have to do anything in here or mess with it, but it should be there. With the mod installed, while invaders should be stopped from being able to kill NPCs and bosses, there might still be some obscure means they may have for doing that, which is why the mod also has an important failsafe, as it also automatically creates additional save backups every time you launch the game. Unless you have your save files set to be somewhere more custom, they might be found under Documents, NBGI, Dark Souls Remastered, a folder that's just a bunch of numbers, and then here you are. The save file here is your original save file from when you first installed the mod. Uninstalling the mod will revert things all the way back to the save. With the mod installed, this is your actual save file now, the one that's always current. And then you have this backups folder where each time you fully quit out and restart the game, it creates this archive of save files that won't get overwritten. So if a hacker somehow finds a way to mess with your game even with the mod installed, you can just retrieve the most recent save backup from before you got hacked and go on from there. This means that the smartest way to use the PvP Overhaul mod is to fully quit and reboot the game periodically, especially when venturing into the areas where hacks are known to be more common. If you're doing marathon sessions without fully rebooting the game very often, the mod may not be as effective as it can be, so keep that in mind. Now at this point, you may be wondering, couldn't you just back up saves on your own without the mod? You absolutely could, and I'll say more about that in a second, but here's why you probably want the mod anyways. It includes various bug fixes and quality of life improvements. The most notable one to me is improvements to the matchmaking. In the same way that Elden Ring allows you to try and invade throughout the whole game instead of just the area you're currently in, the mod makes that possible for Dark Souls as well. When you use a red eye orb or blue eye orb, it'll search for hosts available in every area. Here's an example of me trying to invade from elsewhere, but still managing to find a host in a different area instead. This is extremely helpful, especially for a game with a shrinking player base. This is a very minor thing, but I also found that it stopped the hackers from invading without their display name showing up. When I got invaded by that hacker the second time, I actually saw the invasion prompt, so that was nice. I'm sure I'm glossing over the myriad things this mod does, but there's a Discord you can join if you'd like to install it and have any questions. But yeah, it even fixes the broken ankle rolling animation, so there's a lot of little improvements here worth nabbing. As I mentioned earlier, there's also nothing to stop you from backing up your own save files without the PvP Overhaul mod, so of course you can just do that instead if you'd like. There's also some tools out there that can do this for you. If you have a favorite that you prefer, let me know in the comments below, as I haven't actually used any of them before. But for now, I'll just link to this Reddit thread that has a guide on how to do it manually. And I'll also show it on screen for a moment if you'd like to pause the video and read it that way. But the gist of it is to simply find your game save file, make a separate copy of it, and put that copy into its own folder or rename it. And again, you should do this fairly frequently, certainly before every time you start the game. And you should also probably not overwrite the backups themselves, and instead make a growing list of saves, like backup 1, backup 2, etc. Because there's always the chance that you got hacked without realizing it, and who knows if you have to revert back a couple saves to undo that. And to close out the video, I'd like to quickly address a few more things here. While playing offline is entirely, of course, one way to avoid being hacked, this is a suggestion that is overstated. I would implore the community to stop making it sound like it's the only way to be safe from hacking, so if you could tell people about the mod, or link to this video when the topic of hacking comes up, that'd be greatly appreciated. At one point I saw 3 Gravelord signs at the same time, which is just super cool. I even spawned vagrants for a bunch of players while I was waiting around to be hacked. There's still fun stuff happening in multiplayer, and going completely offline to avoid hacking would just be kind of sad. I also cannot stress enough that simply going offline when you reach Anor Londo isn't the best idea. While that's the most likely place to be hacked, you can't be certain it won't happen elsewhere. You also can't be sure when neighboring areas are at risk too. What I mean by this is that there becomes a point in which the game is cognizant of bosses and NPCs of nearby areas, not just the level you're currently in. If you think Andre is safe because you're only in the Undead Burg and not yet the Undead Parish, you'd be wrong. If you think all of the bosses and NPCs of Anor Londo are safe because you're only in Sense Fortress, you'd probably also be wrong. So while the vast majority of these hacks seem to occur while getting invaded in Anor Londo, I've seen people suggest going offline when you get to Anor Londo specifically, but I do not think this is a trustworthy solution. You should be installing the mod, or backing up saves to be certain. So that's pretty much it. I'll close out the video with a compilation of recent hacking reports, just to drive the point home of how rampant this really is. If you'd like to support this channel, consider doing all the usual things that help the algorithm. You can also support me more directly by becoming a YouTube member or supporter on Patreon. I'd like to thank all of my backers at the Evil Vagrant tier. Thanks again for watching, and be safe out there. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.